So now I'm going to give you some of the answers. Okay, give 3 reasons why the relationship between genes and traits is often complex. So we covered that. So if you remember, we talked about that the relationship between genotype is not as simple as we expect. So this relationship, when you have one gene and one enzyme or one phenotype, this simple relationship hardly ever take place. What you find is a complex relationship when you find that one gene can be that hardly ever one gene is affecting one trait. What you find is that multiple genes are affecting one traits, and that multiple traits are affected by one gene. So examples of epistasis, pleiotropy, and all the things that we have talked, and also the environment is also very important. And I told you also about the gene expression that is very dynamic, the intensity, and the spatial and temporal patterns. So I'm going to give you a few answers, a few examples. One gene can affect more than one trait. One trait can be affected by more than one gene, and many traits can be affected by the environment. Okay, now let's try to solve this exercise that is very easy. And here they look at this. They are asking you for the mode of inheritance. So they don't ask you to guess the genotype of all of them or one of them. They're asking you for the mode of inheritance. So you can do it pretty quickly. And first thing that you have to do to solve this exercise is read this very well, check that you understand everything, and now let's try to analyze what we learned here. So remember, they are asking you, is this dominant or recessive? And they can be asking you, this is autosomal or sex linked. So let's try to solve it. And just take 1 minute, think about it, and I will give you the answer in a second. So the answer here is the mode of inheritance is recessive. That is autosomal recessive. So let's study why. So if you go and fill all this, the only one that work is the recessive. The dominant mode of inheritance doesn't work. But how you come to that conclusion? I'm going to give you some tools. So first, you have to remember that the dominant and the recessive pedigrees are very different. So when you have a dominant mode of inheritance, every person has an affected parent. So as I said in class, affected, 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 and these two affected parent, at least one. However, here, most of the affected person have parents who were not themselves affected. So this one, the parents are only carriers. Good. And the parents can be heterozygous and they can be carriers. So if you go and compare these two things that we talk, you find that you see this one, and this can explain why it's heterozygous, because these parents are not affected. And look at this one. Here you have a trait person that is affected, but the parents are not affected. So the only way that explain this is if it's this recessive. Okay, and again, you can draw all the genotypes and you can test it, but definitely this is recessive. Another important thing about the dominant and the recessive mode of inheritance is that here you find that about more or less half of them will be affected if it's dominant, while if it's recessive, the um, 1 out of 4 of the children's carriers are affected. So let's see here. Here, if you see, there are very little blue, so it's very more likely that is recessive. And here you can start drawing the carriers. So it will look something like this. The ones that are carriers, and this will be the dominance. Okay, from this question, I made three colors because I want that you pay attention to these three things. So read it, and I will talk about these three things. First thing, the blue one. I want that you remember that these were ships. It means a group of parents having the same two parents. It's very common to use that genetics books have that term, and maybe you know it. So this it means siblings. And the second thing that I wanted you to remember here that is fundamental to answer this question is that is 5 children. So you try to have a kid, then again, then again, then again. And this is 5 times, and this is very important. And the other one is that the sex ratio is 1 to 1. And they ask you what is the probability of no boys. So first thing that you have to remember in humans to get this sex ratio of 1 to 1 is because you have 50-50 chances, yeah, of getting a male or getting a female, getting a boy or getting a girl. And every time that you try, it's like flipping a coin. So it's a independent event. There is no relationship with the previous event, yeah. So this is a multiplication rule. Every time that you have this type of exercises, it will be multiplication rule, and you have 5 independent times in 5 times this independent event. No matter if you have a female the first time, the second time you again have the same probability of 50-50 chance. So how you solve it? Super easy. You know their sex ratio, you have half chances, so it will be half of not having a boy, half of not having a boy, half of not having a boy. Again, so after you do it, you multiply 3, 4, and 5 times, you can, this could be an answer, this could be also 1 out of 32. There are multiple ways to answer it. All of them are equal, and in this case, this will be the answer. Why not this one? This one, it will be if it was only one time. It was only once. This one is not true because, so this is not a 1-1 ratio. Yeah, this 5, so this is wrong. This one is perfect here. However, this minus is not correct. And this one, 1 out of 5, this first, this is twice, 2 times. They try to have, they have two kids. Yeah, so they try twice, and this is not 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, so the only option is B. And now let's try to answer this one. And here again, I color coded 3 main parts of the answer. So check those ones because they are very important. So let's try to answer. You have an equal sex ratio. So again, it's 1-to-1, 50 and 50 chances of getting a male or a female, or a boy or a girl. And in this case, you have in greens what? That there are 3 girls. So you have 3 independent events. And the next thing that they said, what is the probability that the next child will be a girl? Okay, that is a very interesting question because as we talk, every time that you flip a coin or every time that you have a kid is an independent event. So what it means, no matter if you have 100 boys, the next one, that one doesn't increase that is a boy or is a girl. Every time that you flip a coin, no matter how many times you flip the coin, you have again the same chance of getting one side or the other side. So in this case, the ratio will be the triggers in the past. So in the first girl, you will get have one girl. It will be half of the chance, but the triggers of the past don't are in the past. They're asking you they're asking you what is the probability of that the next one. So it will be only half. So this is the answer. Zero. This will be if there was independent event. If if they were not independent. Yeah, one. It was if you have an allele that allow you that is lethal here, you know, that don't allow you to have a males. So that would be the only reason. This one it will be if it was 3 times the option of not having a girl, and here is not true, and here this doesn't make sense. Maybe if it doesn't have this, it will be correct. So again, remember that are independent event, and as they are independent, in this case, it will be only half. Okay, now let's try to answer this question. Assuming the independent assortment, how many different gametes can be formed by an organism that is homozygous for 10 and heterozygous for 5 genes? So um, 3 main components of this question. First, the red thing that talk about independent assortment. They talk about gametes, and there are 10. They have genes that are 10 that are homozygous and 5 genes that are heterozygous. To make it to use the FOIL method, it will be almost impossible. It will take a long time. However, if you use the 2 simple procedures that I showed you, it can be very fast. So remember, each one of these is independent events,